Hi guys, I'm so excited to come to you guys today with Ryan. We are teaching you, and he is teaching us, how to actually do our own posture analysis, how to actually see what is off in our bodies and start seeing the dysfunctional patterns so that we know exactly what to do, where our pain's coming from, and how to give our body what it needs to get back to a place of balance. So we're going to keep the introduction short today and dive right in. But this is Ryan and I'm Nicole. We're your co-hosts in the group, the Pain-Free Blueprint. And what we're doing is teaching you guys, putting the power back in your hands to retrain your nervous system and your body to self-adjust so that you're not constantly reliant on other, chiropractors, massage therapists, physical therapists for all this ongoing rest of your life therapy just to put you back together only for you to fall out of place again. And really to end your chronic pain by doing so and by owning those tools and knowing how to take care of your body for yourself and how to put yourself back in alignment. So Ryan, take it away. How do we actually assess our own posture? How do we step into having those eyes to see what's actually going on in our bodies and where our pain's coming from?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So guys, yeah, I'm a functional and biomechanics specialist. So I love this stuff. I geek out on this stuff. And my goal is to kind of explain this as best as I can to the layman so you can understand this. So not a lot of fancy terminology, but ultimately what I need you guys to understand is that the skeletal system the more vertically aligned the skeletal system is, and the more supported the three curves we have in the cervical, thoracic, and lumbar spine, which creates almost kind of like a coil-like effect. If we can have a nice axial loading, axial meaning everything is kind of stacked over itself, that is where we're going to have the most structural support and symmetry. So there are kind of two different types of postural distortions that we're going to be talking about. First, there's the anterior and posterior, the sagittal plane, right? Where in this kind of plane of motion. So that would be forward head posture, hyperextension, or excessive lordosis in the lumbar spine. And then we're going to see lateral side to side, like more frontal plane distortions. And a lot of that's typically going to come from what we're going to go into, which is typically foot pronation, different things like that. So what we're going to do, again, just like McCall said, let's just jump right into it, save you guys a lot of talk and just get right into the nitty gritty. So what I'm going to do is share my screen here, and we're going to look at a kind of more the lateral, the sagittal distortion pattern here. Now, this is just kind of a generic image I found here, but I think it explains it very well. If we look at the guy here on the left, this character here, you can see that his ear very obviously does not align with the middle of this shoulder, right? If we go to the right, look at where the ear is aligned, right over the shoulder. That is that axial vertical loading we're talking about. So if you look at this head, every time, or for every inch the head moves forward in front of the center of balance, right, over the skeletal system, that's an additional 12 pounds, compounding 12 pounds. So that means if the head is on average about 12 pounds, for every inch forward, it's 24 pounds, 36 pounds, right? And where is the brunt of that going? We'll take a look at the bottom of they call it the CT junction, the cervical thoracic junction, right? Where that big protuberous kind of bone or vertebrae is on your back. That's taking the brunt, right? So what are we going to do? We're not going to let ourselves fall forward on our face, right? So we have to make distortions down here and say the lumbar spine, or here so people have different protective mechanisms, right? Some people hyperextend at the lower back. Some people tuck their tailbone, and then we call that Pink Panther syndrome, right? Pink Panther butt, where you lose gluteal activation. You can see that the rectus abdominis here is really shortened, right? So now you can imagine there's a diaphragmatic limitation here. He's not able to take full deep breaths because his muscles are collapsed here. So now we're looking at not just postural problems, but physiological issues. Right now, he can't get enough oxygen to nourish the tissues to the brain, right? We can be in a hypoxic state, in a state of acidosis, right? Which is going to be conducive to inflammatory syndromes. So you can see how just by changing the posture alone, not only do we get a structural or we address structural issues, but we address physiological problems as well. Okay, so that is kind of what we're looking for. Okay, so we want that ear aligned over the shoulder aligned over the hip, and hip over the knee, and the knee over the ankle. That is what we're shooting for. Now, what I would recommend that people do to be able to analyze this for yourself is take a picture of yourself using your phone. So on my phone, I have like a 3 and a 10 second timed option, right? So I set it up on a tripod, I step over, I look, and I make sure that my whole body's in the camera angle, right? Then what I do is I set it on 10-second timer, and I push the button, and then it does a countdown on your phone. And what you do is you stand lateral, just like this guy is here, to the camera. Stand as relaxed as possible. You're going to want to get in this beautiful, perfect posture, but that's going to defeat the purpose. Stand natural, okay? And then what we're going to do is I would recommend you also do a posterior view, which is kind of good too, because then you can see some of the lateral or the frontal plane asymmetries that we're about to jump into. So you want to do a posterior as well. And then let's go ahead and jump into the frontal plane distortion. So we're going to go ahead and share that image now. And we're going to go this one, share, boom. Okay, so let's take a look here. So this is a wonderful depiction of how a simple foot pronation issue, like just look at that right foot in this diagram, only the right foot is pronated. So you can see how if somebody had a bilateral pronation, both feet were pronated, you can see how this would kind of manifest itself. Maybe the left knee would be experiencing some problems as well. It would be more of a symmetrical dysfunction, which isn't, obviously any dysfunction isn't good, but if you had two pronated feet, you would see problems going on. But this is the importance. You can see very clearly that just that one pronated foot, look what's going on. The knee, then we go up into the hip. Now we see this kind of tilting. So going back to the initial one I was talking about, where if we got a posterior view where we're seeing the back of your body, what you're going to see is look at the diagram on the right, look at the hip, see how the sacral area, that red dot right here in the middle of the lower back, that you can see how that's off axis. So you can see that when you do a posterior view of yourself, you'll see if your hips are sitting kind of like this. And that's typically, not in all cases, but typically going to be a manifestation of a pronated foot. Okay, so that is why, in the blueprint we're talking so much about the foot pronation and the structural relevance that it has. Okay, so we can see how it manifests itself all the way up into the neck here. So what you're looking for when you're doing your postural analysis is when you do a posterior view, you'll also notice that maybe one shoulder is a little higher than the other. But can you see how there's this kind of ping-ponging effect going on, right? See, if we look at the pronation on the right side, the right hip drops, but then the left hip is elevated. Then we ping-pong over to the right shoulder, and you see how that's elevated when the short side is actually the right side, right? So it kind of plays with your head a little bit unless you understand this stuff. And that's what we do here is we educate you on what to look for, because myself as an expert, this is what I look for in people, and you're going to train your eye to do the same thing. As far as getting a foot pronation image with your phone, the best thing to do for that is to set the phone up on the ground, leaned up against something. Try to get the phone as vertical as you can. So here's my phone. I want it vertical. I don't want it, leaning like that because it's going to give me kind of a distorted image. I want it vertical, leaned up against, say, a book or something. Stand in front of it. Again, set your timer, 10 seconds. Stand in front of it. Stand natural. Take the picture, and then if we look at this again, the diagram on the right, see the magnification of the right foot, you can see how the Achilles tendon, how it's off axis. If we go to the left diagram foot, notice how there's a nice vertical axis there. That is going to show you whether you have foot pronation. We talked a little bit about this in one of our other talks the other day, but another thing you can look for is wear and tear on the inside of the shoe, right? If you have less tread on the inside of the shoe than you do on the outside of the shoe, chances are you're pronating. And another thing I like people to do to train your eye for this stuff is go out and do some homework. Next time you're at the store, watch people. I see it all the time. I have no choice anymore. It's just like by default, I just see bad posture. You'll see people walk and you'll see them collapse every time they're walking. You'll see the feet just kind of go flat, or they'll roll inwards and pronate. So, doing some homework, even if it's not for you, you're looking at it in other people, you then develop more of an awareness and an understanding. And then you're able to see it in other people, and what you can see in other people, you're going to see in yourself. So that, I believe, covers essentially all of it, but I'm going to throw it back to you, McCall. And if I missed anything or I need to clarify anything, please let me know.
Yeah, well, what I'm sitting with is I thought it would be more complicated. And so that's good news. I can do this, this isn't my area of expertise. That's all the internal and neuropsychological stuff. And so, I'm really excited that it is this simple. That's really it. I can do it. And I think it's great to be able to take photos. Full body. It sounds like you have to have your whole self in there. Front, your front or your back? Is it best to
I
get?
would do both.
Okay, front, back, and side. Sides, and then my feet. And one question I thought of, which is kind of silly, but is there something you should wear or not wear?
Honestly, first of all, if like it's just you seeing it anyway, it's probably best just in minimal clothing, right? Just underwear or a two-piece bathing suit is fine. What you're looking for, your primary landmarks are going to be different based on the view you're looking at, right? If I'm looking at a side view, I'm looking for forward head posture. I'm looking for, do I have too much extension in my lumbar spine? Is my tailbone tucked? Remember Pink Panther? If I'm looking at a front view, is one shoulder higher than the other? Is there a pronation? So again, just like in that picture, if I've got a high right shoulder, chances are I've got a left pronated foot, right? So that's kind of what you're looking for. Anything that's going to give you good feedback. Stand in front of maybe a darker wall with a flash on, right? So that way you can see, clearly, right? Because if I'm against a white wall, obviously I'm not going to be able to, or maybe, no, that doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? As long as there's a good contrast between you and the wall, that's what I would
similar
recommend.
colors. Like if I take it in front of my bookshelf and there's a ton of crap, or right here, a ton of crap in the background versus a blank wall, I think. Yeah. Okay.
And sorry, there's an app and I'm blanking. I should have thought of it. If we come up with it, we can drop it in the group for people. And I actually bought it a while back and I completely forgot about it, but you can take a picture of yourself and then it has grids that it overlays over your body and you can see, and it'll tell you exactly to what degree you're off.
Cool.
Which is really cool.
We'll find that. I'd love to have that for myself as well and everybody in the group. That's great. Absolutely. I did have another question, and how should we be taking notes? So, let me back up. I know that I can do this and can be highly observant of my body because there's times where I've even looked, at these little ball things right there, whatever they're called, my clavicles,
SC joints.
And I notice that they're off. So I know that I can notice what's off and say, right shoulder's higher, blah, blah, blah. But I'm curious if there's a way that we want people taking notes. How do you take notes about what you're observing?
Yeah, so really when you take the pictures, that's really like kind of a visual note taking. So it's something that you can consistently go back to, just like if you're doing a weight loss program, you had before and after pictures, you can always go back. And as far as notes go, so for example, the SC joint, by the way, stands for sternoclavicular joint. If you have kind of a distortion there, that probably means that there's maybe an elevated shoulder. So you're seeing a change in the elevation here. So that's kind of a microcosm of what's going on from a macrocosm perspective. So what that means is if we go in and we do all the soft tissue work that we give you in the blueprint, you're doing all that stuff, you're breaking everything down, you're most likely breaking down all of the distortions that are contributing to the asymmetries. So what we're looking for, like big landmark problems, forward head, rounded thoracic spine. As you start to address those, you're going to start to see everything else start to become a little more symmetrical. There are little like kind of bony landmarks that you can look for. Those get a little more advanced for people. What I would recommend is, for any students that do do the blueprint, if later on down the line, you're still struggling with stuff and you're like, well, this is still kind of out of whack and I still get a little pain here, then we can do kind of more of like an advanced approach, right? Where we're like, okay, well, let's take a look at this, and this. Have you tried this? If not, try that. And then we can give people kind of a little more individualized attention. But as far as like kind of the macro approach to things, just use the pictures as your guide.
Well, that's perfect. And that also helps me. I'm not going to miss anything. I think that this topic to people who are untrained feels really big and scary. People, the chiropractors go however many years to school, you know what I mean? And they know all these fancy words, and that's not me. So I love that what you're actually saying is it's simple. You can't miss it. You're looking for major, obvious things, and you have to start there. You can't even get into advanced stuff because it's probably going to fix itself once you actually just start, going through the process of releasing soft tissues and the other stuff that you're teaching us here. So that's cool. I can just be confident, get that first starting point picture. And then as I go through adjusting all the soft tissues in my body, I'm going to notice that my body's naturally changing. It's
Exactly.
not like I have to worry I have this special problem.
Right. Well, it's funny because so people, again, they get really intimidated with all the terminologies, but the reality is, like, if you went to like some little village in Thailand and there was a guy who was a body worker, and he's not going to be referring to the brachioradialis and the articulation. No, he just knows, hey, if I get in here and I mobilize this tissue, it's going to do this. And this is like, their names are just, medical terminologies that we use to be able to communicate from one specialist to another specialist, right? That's how we communicate in the medical field and these different practices. But really, so once we teach students how to understand what a good posture looks like, what tensegrity is, which we talked about in another video, this idea between integrity and tension, which was a term coined by Buckminster Fuller, right? So what we're looking for is, once we understand that, it really is so simple, and you have just kind of a basic anatomical understanding, you just realize that muscle is it's basically the cables that attach to the bony prominences. And when those muscles contract, they move the bone. If they're too contracted or too tight and they need release work, you release it, and then it gives you start to learn what muscles need to be released and what muscles need to be more toned in order to give you that tensegrity, that good posture. You don't have to understand all the anatomy. You just get to a point where you look at the body and you just know. You're like, oh, this shoulder's here. Okay, well, clearly what's attached to this. So I'm going to release it. Boom, right? It's really simple. And it's not really simple, but it's nowhere near as hard as people think.
Yeah, it sounds like too, and I've experienced this before, even getting into like the soft tissue release and like this, how do you start correcting this stuff? Mm-hmm. I knew with my neck issue, that was why I came on the group and shared this past week, why I'm so excited to co-host this, why I'm so excited you're teaching us. I've known you for a long time, and now like here we're getting this out to people. I didn't know what to do. Excuse me. I didn't know what to do. And I hadn't even been trained by you quite yet. It was just, I was able to calm down and think about it for a second and just feel into my body. And I was able to self-adjust. And it's like, why haven't I even started the program yet? you know, and it's already working. So I love the message. It is simple. It will be obvious. It's about learning how to see and how to think, and then you'll just know. And I think, I don't know, I'm complete about this. I think it's a great thing. I'm looking for the side view. Does my ear line up with my shoulder, line up with my hip, line up with my knee, line up with my ankle? Mm-hmm. And the full body, the front and the back, I'm looking for, this. And you're going to drop a link to an app that helps us with the grid. And really, it's a matter of just capturing those photos and observing and starting observing people in the stores and starting observing yourself. And that's really the first step in seeing where the problem's really coming from.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's simple. Thanks, Ryan. So for you guys, this group is a little bit newer. We're in our first stages, so we've got a lot of stuff to teach you. Our next course, I think, is going to be on the soft tissue release and why that's the first thing you have to do in order to correct stuff. You can't strengthen, you can't work it out, you can't like adjust and crack and pop. Like the soft tissues and the fascia is the first place to start, like Ryan's saying, to start evening everything out and allowing your body to self-adjust and self-correct. So we're going to be talking about that. Stay tuned for that. And if you guys are really sick of, outsourcing all this, of not knowing how to see your own imbalances, how to adjust yourself, how to just know what to do to keep yourself in alignment, and you're sick of paying a lot of money, for me, it's $180,000 for me to keep up my body work routine for the rest of my life, what I'm paying now every week, every month. That's a big bill. And I thought to myself, I don't want to keep doing that. There's got to be a way for me to have the power and control of my body. It doesn't make sense that I would continue to go out of alignment. What is causing that? So that's why I got so excited about this and brought it to my clients. And now we're here teaching all of you. So if that's you and you really want to dive in deep and just have that blueprint and know exactly what to do for your body, how to maintain it for the rest of your life, schedule a free breakthrough call with us. I've got the link below. It's healingtraumanow.com/apply. That's my personal scheduling calendar. So just give me a little bit of information. It's kind of set towards emotional trauma, but we know that physical trauma works too. So just give us some information about what you're dealing with, what kinds of issues, who you're seeing that's putting you back, together, your chiropractor, massage therapist, whatever. And we're going to dive in and look at what's working and what's not. We're going to look at what's been missed and what you haven't been taught in order to maintain your adjustments for life. And so that's what we do on the breakthrough call, is really dive into all of that and help you guys know the exact next steps to take in order to just have total control, put it back in your hands, your structural alignment and integrity, and eliminate that chronic pain and those chronic problems. So Ryan, anything you want to share before we hop off with this one?
Nope. I just say stay active in the group, guys. Make sure you're asking questions. That's what we're here to do, is provide value. And don't hesitate to ask questions. And that is all I have to say.
Awesome. So. And I'd love, Ryan, are you open if we share our photos with you? I guess you'd have to be clothed.
Yeah,
but if we can post them in the group, at least maybe get some feedback on what you see as the expert, to help us know we're seeing the right stuff.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought that up, because I was actually thinking that, if you guys want to share, your content on the page, or you want to share it, to us in a message, maybe you don't want to show, a picture of yourself, that's totally fine. I get that. But obviously we're all here to empower ourselves, become better. So obviously we're not going to criticize, nobody's going to criticize anybody. So don't feel, ashamed or worried to post it out there. I'm a massage therapist. I see bodies all the time, and that's what I do for a living. So yeah, please feel free to do that.
That's awesome. And I know we'll celebrate. For the longest time, people didn't know what was wrong with me, or why I kept not holding my adjustments, or why, this neck keeps going out of alignment and I just keep going and getting it Band-Aid adjusted. Right. And so for me, it's a huge win and a huge victory when I celebrate, oh my God, look at that. So not only will we not judge, but Ryan, I can see us celebrating some people really getting this and taking the time to look at their bodies and see what they see, and then move forward with continuing to learn from you. So let's celebrate the weirdness and get everyone well, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Thanks so much, Ryan.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, guys.